There is a drug epidemic happening here in America. Our fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, nieces, and nephews are dying each and every day. Enough is enough. It's time to fight back. Welcome. You are now about to witness the beginnings of the underground church in America. Our government has been infiltrated with Luciferians, and our cities have been infiltrated with madness. They want our heads. They want our silence. This is our response in Christian resistance. We are a select few of Christian soldiers, and we need to know, are you down? And now, for the minister.
Super Soldier! Gangstas! Welcome back! It's been a while, man, since I did a video, and today I want to be talking about it's story time, you know, with SS Jerk. I want to be talking about a story from my youth, from my past. I was about 7 years old. I say this story took place, and I know I was living in by 84 I was living in Santa Rosa, so I want to say this took place in around 82 in San Jose, California. Okay, and we used to live in San Jose, and I researched and I tried to look for this particular murder that happened, and try to see if I could find a cold case, an article about it, and I was never able to find anything about it, right? Because I think sometimes some of this stuff, just depending who you were, gets swept under the rug, right? You know, but I want to talk about a murder that occurred in 82 in San Jose, and we lived north of Eastridge Mall, and there was a little airport north of Eastridge, and we lived in that barrio right north of the airport, okay? And so I don't want to say kind of like the address of where this took place at, because in respect for the new homeowners that live there now, probably have no clue of what had transpired in their home. I looked like on Google Maps, and the neighborhood that we used to live in doesn't look nothing like it used to when we were kids. It actually looks really nice. The homes are really nice. The landscaping's absolutely beautiful in that neighborhood. I'm glad to see that neighborhood doing good, but it didn't look like that back in 82, right? You know, we live next to a black family, and the patriarch of the family, of course, when I was little, I used to say she was a viejita, right? She was an old lady, but when I look back, she probably was in her 60s, you know, but she was the patriarch of her family. And she had, like, what I didn't understand at that time, you know, but a southern charm to her, like a real honey child, sweet southern charm that I never understood as a kid. But when I moved to Texas, which is part of the South, I met people like that, and I finally understood, you know, what that is. You know, it's just a real hospitality southern feel. So I almost think that she wasn't from California, you know. I didn't get that vibe from her, you know. But she was a sweet lady, and she used to sell Cool Cups. And so for those of you that don't know what a Cool Cup is basically when they get Kool-Aid and they put maybe a little extra sugar in it, right? And they boil it and make like a syrup. And then when it cools down, they pour it in little styrofoam cups. And you could like dig it out with a spoon, you know, and it was a Cool Cup. And she sold it for like, I think it was like 25 cents, you know, like change that you could just like scrounge up around the house, or, you know, find change in a car, and just, you know. And so after school, she'd open up her garage and she'd sell Cool Cups. And that was her side hustle, right? Back then, before the even word side hustle was even a thing, right? But, you know, she used to make a little, you know, jingle for herself by selling Cool Cups. And, you know, everybody knew her in the neighborhood, and, you know, she was loved. She was loved, you know, and her family. And I noticed there was a little baby she used to take care of and whatnot. But, you know, like the family wasn't without trouble, you know. And so one day, I'll never forget it because it was traumatic in my life, you know, as a kid. But there was a drive-by shooting and she was killed, my next door neighbor, and it was traumatic. All the neighbors came out and couldn't believe that who'd want to kill this sweet lady, and by spectators said it was a drive-by, and with a high-powered rifle. And this occurred when the sun was going down. It was still light outside, and so I almost think that the shooter was able to see shadows of people walking inside the house, and was able to pick out the target. And they shot her high-powered rifle right through the wall, and hit its target, and she passed away. And so, who'd want to kill a sweet lady like that? So the police came, and they put on, I remember that night, because it was nighttime, and they had these lights, this huge lights that they set up, and they had illuminated the whole neighborhood. There was light pouring in our room, and they were just helicopters. They were looking for a man on foot, but local kids tried to argue that there was no man on foot. It was a drive-by. It was a drive-by shooting, and I remember that night, my mom. It was so traumatic for my family. At the house at that time, I had my little sister and my older brother at that time. And I remember kneeling by the bed and praying. I just remember like that specifically, as this light shining on us from outside, praying for the lady, praying for her family, and who'd want to kill this sweet old lady, So I don't know if it was her son or her grandson, but he had an obvious drug problem, and so much so that it started to take his mind, these drugs that he was taking. And we were a witness to some of that sometimes, that was going on and whatnot. And so it was speculated at that time that the murder had actually occurred because of him, something that he had did, and it kind of like makes sense, because this sweet old lady, didn't hurt nobody. She never did nothing to nobody. She was just trying to be the sweet patriarch grandma type, and but sometimes, like, when you get caught in a world like her grandson was, and you owe somebody money, or I don't know, they have a thing that is called they pull the roots, right? And so what they do is that they will kill a family member and let you live with that, that guilt. And that was the best thing that we could ever thought of, and this is kind of why I think it's kind of like I was never able to find her name, and never able to find like what had transpired, and if I wouldn't have been there myself with my own eyes. I remember them bringing out her body with a sheet covering it, and I remember when we left San Jose to move to Santa Rosa, that house had been vacant for a year. Like, they vacated that house as soon as the murder happened, and I mean, it was cleaned out. It was just like cleaned out, the hole still in the wall, and of course, I don't think anybody had even remembered that what had transpired, and especially the new homeowners, out of respect, I don't want to give up the the address to the house and whatnot, but I said all this to say this. I told you that story here on this story time to say this. I often think of that young man, her grandson that had the problems, and whatever became of him, if he's even still alive, bet you he'd be in his 70s by now if he was still alive, and whatever became of him. And such a tragic story, he probably either died years ago from his addiction, but you never know. I like to think sometimes that he became a preacher, and did something great with his life, and the moral to the story, and why I'm telling you this, is that sometimes we run into people with addictions, and sometimes it's hard for us to have a compassion, but you never know where this addiction took them. And the ugly things they saw because of addiction. Imagine your addiction getting your grandma killed and what that would do to a person, you know. And some of these people that are addicted, they lived through pure horror that we would never understand. And they're hurt people. They're hurt people. And for us not to have some kind of compassion on them, if you don't have any compassion on them, the love of God is not in you. You know, I hear stories of just pure horror of what addiction has taken people, the places that it's taken people, you know, the places it's taken me in my own life, you know. But I hear stories, you know, when I'm ministering at the jail, and it just will horrify you, you know, like the things that people go, the dark places, you know, that addiction will take somebody, you know. And if this is a country that's full of Christians, you know, we have to pray for these addicts. You know, we got to pray for them, and that you know, we ask God to have compassion on us, right? We ask God to have compassion on us, you know. But how is God supposed to have compassion on us when we can't even show compassion towards these addicts, you know? And some of them struggle real hard with their addiction. You know, they don't want to be in the places that they're at, you know. And the only one that could take you from an addiction, from a lifestyle so horrible, is Jesus Christ. He's the only one that could deliver me from such horrors. So as people, you know, when we see people strung out, and instead of taking out our phone and filming them, you know, let's try to have some compassion and pray for them, and try to speak life and love in their life. God bless you.